구원해준 나의 천사 나의 세상 난 이상 새 고향이 널 만나러
Vian was sitting on the tennis court, tapping her racket on the ground. Her face scrunched in annoyance. She had lost today against Jimin, and she was losing her sanity over this. Her fingers drummed impatiently, her eyes narrowing with each frustrated tap. When her eyes lifted, Jimin was already staring at her. He had the nerve to show her his middle finger before scratching his head with the same one. Vian rolled her eyes and turned away. She had done even worse when she won matches, so punching him on the face was not really an option, though both of her wanted to. Her gaze shifted to Sohee, her best friend, sitting right next to her. Sohee was smiling, her eyes bright, looking at someone across the court. Maya followed her line of sight. Of course, it was Jimin. He smiled back briefly before turning away. Her mind immediately started running, calculating, imagining scenarios. What if Jimin falls for Sohee? What if she could distract him? What if he spends more time with her and practices less, and he loses the next match? Vian bit her lip, the thought alone making her lips quirk in a sly little smile. Yes, she said aloud to herself, almost a whisper, almost a challenge. So he flinched, turning to look at her. Yes, what? She asked, confused but amused. Yes, you are a pretty girl, Oyen said, leaning in, hugging Sohie's shoulders. Sohie's smile widened. I know that, though, she said, chuckling softly. They laughed together, unaware of the little plan Wayne was already weaving in her mind, the kind of plan that might just shake things up a bit. First, I have to make them talk. But how would they even agree to that? Vian muttered in her mind, pacing slightly. Ideas were spinning, colliding, forming a plan. And then she saw Jimin sitting there, alone, scrolling on his phone, completely absorbed in his own world. So he was beside her, oblivious to Vian's scheming. And then, just like that, an idea popped into Vian's mind. A mischievous smile curved her lips. If she slipped so his foot, so he would fall. But Jimin would catch her. Their eyes would meet. The perfect first move. Vian chuckled quietly to herself, excitement bubbling up. She started walking toward them, feeling time slow, step deliberate, calculated. Jimin remained unaware, still scrolling, minding his own business, while Vian's pulse quickened. The plan was simple, perfect, and just mischievous enough to work. As they neared Jimin, Wayne quickly moved her foot in front of Sohee's, but instead of Sohee, she slipped herself. Her eyes widened in panic and she instinctively shut them, bracing for the ground. Instead, she felt resistance, tight hands around her stomach holding her up. When she opened her eyes, Jimin was there, holding her steady. The fuck do you have eyes for? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Wayne instantly stood, breathing hard, heart hammering. She couldn't even formulate a comeback, her plan already unraveling in the most chaotic way. Are you okay? So he asked, concern in her voice. Wayne quickly held her friend's hand before darting away, unable to give Jimin a response, unable to even look back at why Jimin blinked, clearing his throat, heart inexplicably racing as he watched her disappear. He stared after the direction Wayne had just run. confused, slightly flustered, and maybe a little surprised. Something about her had just thrown him off, and he didn't even understand why his chest felt tight as he watched her vanish from sight. They were in a practice session. Jimin was practicing with Sojin, back and forth, the sound of the ball hitting sharp in the air. Wyan enters the place with Sohee, her eyes scanning right away, and then she sees Jimin, and her brain instantly runs with an idea. Sohee, do you like to practice tennis with me? Wyan asks out of nowhere, and Sohee's eyebrows arc straight up. I'm really bad at that, Wyan. We can swim if you'd like, Sohee says, already nervous, and Wyan shakes her head quickly. Now I have to practice tennis for the next match, Wyan says, throwing her puppy eyes at Sohee. The kind that always works. Sohee chuckles at her. Don't blame me if I waste your time, she says, but Wyan is already clinging to her arm, giggling. They walk faster, steps echoing lightly, and Jaman is still practicing with Sojin. Can we join you guys? Wyan asks, her eyes flicking between Jimin and Sojin. Jimin stops, racket lowering, and stares straight at her. Sojin blinks, hesitating. Sure. He looks over at Jimin. Jimin flicks his head and shrugs his shoulders, not saying much, but enough. Wyan smirked. Okay, Kurutin. She says, pushing Sohee toward Jimin, and she walks toward Sojin. Her little plan was already falling into place in her head. Since Sohee is bad at the game, Jimin might help her learn, and then they would talk to each other. And if they talked, maybe they'd get close, and if they got close, Jimin would get distracted. That was the plan. Can I serve? Wayan asks Sojin. He nods. Wayan throws the ball up and serves it across the net towards Sohee. Sohee misses completely, the ball bouncing off the ground and rolling away. Sorry, Sohee says sheepishly, lowering her head. Jimin looks at Wayan, frustration clear in his eyes, like he already knows this is Wayan's fault. Sohee moves closer to him, ignoring the stare. Jimin, how to do it? She asks, looking at Jimin with curious eyes. Wayan smiles, her lips curving in victory. This was exactly what she expected. Jimin starts teaching Sohee, showing her with his hands how to toss the ball, how to swing a racket properly. Wayan leans on her racket, standing casually, her eyes watching every single moment with a quiet smirk on her face. Oh, thank you. Sohee says, trying again. First attempt, a complete miss. The second one makes it over the net. Little sloppy, but enough. Wayan swings, returning the ball fast. And Jimin is already there, hitting it right back in rhythm. He moves quick, fast, his feet crossing the court easily. Jimin is practically playing the game by himself now, returning both sides. Focused completely well, so he just stands there with her racket dangling in her head, watching like she's already given up. But Wayan, who was always competitive, couldn't stop. She kept returning the ball every swing sharper than the last, her body moving on instinct. She almost pushed Sojin aside as she shot the ball back, her glare locked on Jimin. Jimin wasn't ready to let the ball touch the ground. He was too focused, too caught up, his own glove Sharp, determined, he wanted to win over Oyen, and Oyen she would not lose. Not again, never again. Sojin glanced at Sohee, who was still standing awkwardly on the court, racket hanging loosely in her hands. She looked back at him, confused, almost tired already. Sojin gestured her out. They both quickly walked out of the court. They sat down on the bleachers side by side, watching the chaos unfold in front of them. They look like monsters now, Sochin muttered, shaking his head. So he chuckled, nodding, unable to argue with that. Monsters, that's exactly what they look like. The game was no longer practice, it was war. Pride against pride, breath against breath. You lose the ball, let me smack that smirk off your face. Jimin spat out, eyes flashing. Wayne, even though her breathing was heavy, she still found the energy to fire back. You lose the ball, you will lose your own balls. Her glare darkened, sharp enough to cut, and then they kept going, running across the court, neither of them willing to surrender. The ball slammed back and forth, the sound echoing like a drum beat. Sweat dripping, sneakers squeaking, their focus unshakable. Ouch! Ryan hissed as sweat dripped into her eye, blurring her vision. Just like that, she lost the ball. The game was over. Jimin dropped his racket immediately, his chest heaving, a grin pulling at his lips. He finally won. Wait, that's my sweat drop, Ryan said quickly, her voice rushed panicked, but Jimin didn't care. He was already moving, running toward her, eyes sharp with something else entirely. So he and Sojin froze, their eyes wide as they watched. The moment Wayne realized he was coming straight at her, she panicked, her eyes blurred, her body stumbling. Yet she ran. She threw the racket aside, running as fast as she could, like she wanted to vanish right there. She darted into the changing room, slamming the door behind her, her hand fumbling at the lock. But before she could twist it closed, Jimin was already inside, slipping through the door, shutting it behind him, trapping the air with his presence. He was standing inside, palms on his hips, just rising and falling fast. Maya looked around frantically. Help, maybe? But no, the room was empty, completely empty, and Jimin locked the door. The click echoed, small but terrifying. What did you say earlier? His voice came closer, low, serious, teasing. Oyen gulped. No, don't show weakness. Not now. Her stomach twisted, heart hammering. Why did it feel like every part of her was betraying her? Your 2 centimeter will be gone. Oyen said, trying to sound steady, brave, confident, even though her legs felt like jelly. Jimin's brow shot up, one arc perfect and mocking. 2 centimeter, he asked, stepping closer, eyes sharp, dark, burning. Her eyes flicked to the door, then back at him. Before he could even process, she bolted. She thought she could make it, but his hands, fast, sudden, shot up. praising another either side of her. Kate, trapped, she froze. Be thankful if my eyes didn't go blurry, you didn't have one. Maya said words rushing, trying to fuel him, keep control, keep herself from panicking. Keep talking, keep breathing, keep moving, don't let him know. You're good at making excuses. I'll take the win anyway, Jimin said, just almost brushing hers. Foreheads nearly touching, and Wayan, oh no, she was losing it. She didn't know how to describe it, didn't know what she was feeling. His scent intoxicating, sharp, warm. His glare so focused, so piercing, yet somehow captivating. His breath brushed her skin and she shivered, mind spinning, chest tight, stomach twisting, head pulling in her ears, heart racing. And Jimin didn't know what he was doing either. He was trying to hold back, not touching, couldn't, wanted to, so badly. Every nerve on fire, every thought gone. Only her, only this, only now. Mia showed him breaking the tension, breaking herself, just pressed against his panic and adrenaline mingling. Hands fumbled for the lock, shaking. Door clicked open. She ran fast, heart hammering, legs carrying her almost too fast. Don't look back, don't stop. Jimmy stayed, just rising and falling, breathing heavy, heart thundering. His mind was spinning, confused, furious at himself, thrilled, frustrated. Whatever just happened, whatever just hit him, he didn't understand. He didn't want to. And why she didn't look back, eyes blurry, chest heavy, legs trembling, hands still shaking from the adrenaline. She needed space, she needed air, needed to calm down before she even thought about what just happened. Oh no, they started. Sohee whispered, eyes glued to the screen inside the movie theater. She had planned this, a casual movie night with friends, but what Oyen didn't expect was Jimin. She still had no idea he was there. Her eyes widened immediately. Eyes, use your fucking eyes, Jimmy muttered under his breath, frustrated before even she realized she was seated next to him. Maya turned to Sophie for backup, but she was already laughing and talking with him. What a movie night, Maya thought, leaning back in her chair, trying to pretend nothing was happening. Her arm reached for the armrest, only to find Jimmy's already there. She pushed his arm partially, keeping her own, and he turned, eyebrow raised. Don't start it, Oyen muttered. Don't start it, Jimin muttered, but Ryan wasn't listening. She shifted closer, Daryl, and Jimin put his arm against hers, pressing subtly. She leaned her head slightly, whispering, "Take it away." "Oh, what?" he asked, tilting his head, smoke tugging at his lips. Her eyes flicked to the popcorn box in his hand. Without thinking, she showed her hand in, grabbing a handful and eating it. "That's fine," he said, voicely teasing. He didn't really mind. Women wasn't struggling. "Take your arm away, I'll not touch your popcorn," she said, digging her hand in again. Jimin raised an eyebrow, then settled his arm comfortably against hers. Their fingers brushed, fingertips just a little touch. Oyen gulped. "No, don't show it." But Jimin was already losing it. Every little touch made him insane. He had no idea what Oyen was feeling either. When she dug again into the popcorn, he did too. Their fingers brushed again. Eyes locked. They forgot to blink. Time, sti- time seemed to stretch. Rain cleared her throat nervously, finally pulling her hand out and moving her arm from the armrest. Jimin blinked, turning his gaze toward the sea. Jimin blinked, turning his gaze back toward the screen, hearing every reaction his body was giving him, but unable to ignore it either. Wayan saw he was seated on the beaches, eyes following Jimin, and Sojin was practicing. This time Wayan didn't interrupt. No, she knew what happened last time and she would not risk it again. So his eyes, however, were glued to Sojin, and Sojin, he looked back. Between shots during the 20-second breaks, his glance caught hers. A smile flickered, soft, teasing, and so he couldn't help but smile back, whispering, "He looks handsome." "Yeah," Ryan muttered absent-mindedly, but her gaze never left Jimin. As always, no matter how many souls he hit, how many times he wiped sweat from his brow, he kept looking back at her, eyes locking, studying, measuring. She could see it. Every winning shot made him glance her way. Every step he took across the court, every stretch, every pass, Ryan noticed. The way he moved, his focus shifting between practice and her presence, it made her chest tighten and her thoughts scramble. Practice finally ended. Sojin tossed his racket aside and walked towards Sohee, casual but confident. Ryan watched away, Jimin though he stayed. Still standing on the court, eyes locked on her, neither made a move. Neither could look away. The tension hung thick between them, palpable. Neither could break it. Ryan's chest rose and fell faster than usual. He was waiting, she was waiting, and yet neither made the first move. The silence was a battle in itself. "Can we go buy some drinks? I need sugar," Sojin asked, glancing at Sohee. She nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. Wayan looked up. "Yeah, of course. Please go ahead," she said, voice calm, eyes following them as they walked away. That left Wayan and Jimin alone. He was still standing there, water in hand, just rising slowly as he caught his breath. Wayan shifted, standing, moving toward the changing room. Slow, deliberate, she knew he would follow. She could almost hear his heartbeat in her mind, every step echoing inevitability of it. And just like that, he did. No hesitation, every motion confident control. It clearly drawn to her. The chase was silent, but it was on.